best president we ever had.
Yet again, it's Donald Trump versus the law.
Trump fought the law, but we know Trump won.
Today we witness the most evil and heinous abuse of power in the history of our country.
This time, the former president is accused of keeping top-secret government documents and refusing to give them back. In August last year, the FBI seized 11,000 documents in archive boxes from Trump's luxury Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. More than 100 of those were classified.
Faithful adherence to the rule of law is the bedrock principle of the Justice Department and of our democracy.
They were stored in unsecured areas, in a ballroom, a storeroom, and even next to a toilet in a bathroom. Prosecutors say tens of thousands of guests visited the resort during that time, and on 2 occasions, Donald Trump showed some documents to people who had no security clearance, telling one group, "As president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, but this is still a secret."
How anyone could be that irresponsible? And I thought, what data was in there that may compromise sources and methods? By that I mean names of people who helped, or et cetera. And it's just totally irresponsible.
According to prosecutors, one top-secret document refers to the nuclear capabilities of a foreign country. Another marked secret concerns the nuclear weaponry of the United States. The US Special Counsel Jack Smith issued the indictment last week.
Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with felony violations of our national security laws, as well as participating in a conspiracy to obstruct justice. This indictment was voted by a grand jury of citizens in the Southern District of Florida.
Today, Donald Trump faced a Miami court for the first time, pleading not guilty to 37 charges. If convicted, he could face up to 20 years in jail. Donald Trump left court for a Cuban restaurant.
Food for everyone. Food for everyone.
In a defiant speech later in New Jersey, he denied any wrongdoing.
The Espionage Act has been used to go after traitors and spies. It has nothing to do with a former president legally keeping his own documents. Whatever documents a president decides to take with him, he has the right to do so. It's an absolute right.
Even if Donald Trump is convicted, there's nothing in the US Constitution to stop him from becoming president.
We will take back our country and we will make America great again.
Jill Wine-Banks was the General Counsel of the US Army and a prosecutor during Watergate. Jill Wine-Banks, thank you for joining us. How significant was this event today?
It is a first in American history. No former president has ever been indicted at the federal level. So this is a first for us. It's not a first around the world. Other countries have done it and have stayed democracies anyway.
A note of hope, but in the meantime, the former Attorney General of the US, Bill Barr, says if half of what's in the indictment is true, Trump is toast. What do you think?
Well, I wore a Jill's pin that was a piece of toast because I agree with him. It's probably the first time I've ever agreed with Bill Barr, but the evidence laid out in this indictment is incredibly strong. And it's an easy indictment for people to read and to look at the pictures. It includes pictures of how carelessly stored our national secrets were. He had them stored in a ballroom at his club, which is a public place, on a stage, in a bathroom, which was a public area. And that shows just utter contempt for classified documents to put them in that kind of condition.
Can you characterize for us the seriousness of the documents listed in the indictment?
The ones referred to, there are 31. Now, we know that he took hundreds of top secret and higher classification documents, but the 31 are probably the ones that the government felt it could share in a public trial, which the others they couldn't. But some of them include information that was intended only for our closest allies, including Australia, for your intelligence officials, for people with the right security clearances to see. And there are some of those. There are some that show the vulnerabilities of our own security systems, some that deal with nuclear weapons, some that deal with the vulnerabilities of our allies. So I think the contents laid out for the 31 documents that are specified in this indictment are really, really strong. In addition to the retention of those, the unlawful retention of those documents, the indictment also charges him with false statements, lying, with concealing documents, hiding them during the course of an investigation, which is a separate crime from just the removal and retention of them, is then I'm going to hide them so that my own lawyer can't tell you that I have them, so that you, the FBI, when you come to do a search, can't find them. Those are all separate crimes that constitute obstruction of justice and interference with our national security.
Now, just to come to what Trump said today in his own defence, he said that this is charging a former president for possessing his own presidential papers and that he had unconstrained authority regarding the disposal of documents. What's your response to those assertions?
Those are complete misstatements of our laws. And I would also go further and say, and he knows that they are, because number one, his lawyers told him that. Number two, the National Archives told him that, because he was informed by the Department of Justice that that was the case when they asked nicely for these documents, when they subpoenaed the documents, and ultimately when they had to ask the court for a search warrant to retrieve those documents.
This case is going to be heard in Florida, not in Washington, D.C. It does mean he's in the hands of a Trump-friendly judge. Is there anything he can do to stop the case proceeding?
There is a risk of what we call a directed verdict, which is a power that a federal judge has in a jury case. Before the jury enters deliberations, the defense can make a motion for a directed verdict, saying they would argue that no interpretation of the facts presented, the evidence presented in this courtroom, could lead a reasonable jury to vote for conviction. Therefore, we ask that you direct a verdict of not guilty. Judges almost never, ever do that, even in egregious cases. This will not be such a case, but it is possible that a corrupt judge or a not so smart judge could take the decision away from the jury and enter a directed verdict.
And just to go back to his claims, because Trump says both Biden and Mike Pence had classified material at their homes, and today he made a big deal about Bill Clinton keeping audio tapes in his sock drawer. Is there comparable behaviour in contemporary American history?
No. The thing that distinguishes this, and really any case that is prosecuted under these kinds of laws, under the Espionage Act or any other related laws, is not just an accidental removal and retention. It's that when called to your attention, you say, I'm not giving them back. And signing a certificate that says, I made a thorough search and there's nothing else. Those elevate this to a prosecutable offense, as opposed to someone packed up the White House and the vice president's mansion, because remember, Pence had documents that were discovered at his home. Joe Biden, who at the time was vice president, this is not from his presidency, it's from his vice presidency. Someone packed him up and he possessed them, and some of them are in his garage. It's a bad thing, but as soon as it was discovered, he said, please come and take them. I don't want them. Nobody lied in that case, and they cooperated fully. Now, Donald Trump has lied saying, I was cooperating. That is baloney. He has said, I had 2 years to decide what to give back. No, you didn't. You had no time to ever take them to begin with. So that's why it's very, very different.
Finally, can you run for president as a convicted felon?
Yes, you can. In America, the only qualifications for running for president are that you be over 35 and a natural-born citizen. And there are many states that bar felons from voting. So he might not be able to vote for himself, but he can run for president. It's an absurdity in our rules that you could be. And what's even more absurd is that he could actually win the election even after being convicted.
Jill Wine-Banks, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.